I think we Muslims are in a collective state of psychosis because we're proud to belong to a country that was a map drawn by the non-Muslims 40, 50 years ago. How insane is that? Zindabad, Pakistan. Zindabad, Pakistan. Pakistan is a country that was put there by the British. Maps drawn on the line. Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, Morocco. Lines drawn on maps by the French, by the Italians, by the British. Dividing us up into nations. And now we are screaming fanatically, rallying behind some flag that didn't even exist 100 years ago, ready to fight for it and die for it. This is madness. This is sickness. This is something so far removed from what Allah revealed to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. It's nothing but hizbiyah. It's nothing but another form of tribalism, of partisan spirit, about which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever calls for asabiyah, whoever calls for tribalism, and whoever fights for asabiyah, for tribalism, then they call and they fight and they die the death of Jahiliyyah. They die and they fight and they call for the death of ignorance, the time of ignorance. Yet these are the lines upon which we are divided. Nationalistic lines, tribalistic lines, sectarian lines. Yet Allah warned us in the Quran, many times in the Quran, about the danger of dividing into sects and groups. Indeed, he said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, as for those people who divide their deen into sects, the meaning of which is, as for those people who divide their deen into sects, you have nothing to do with them in the least. Their reckoning is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in the Quran, Allah likened those people who divide the religion into sects and into groups. He likened them to the mushriks. And indeed it is one of the quality and the sifat and the attributes of disbelievers.
And by the way, to be very, very frank, the nations you're so proud of are rubbish. Pakistan's a failed state. Bangladesh is killing Muslims at the moment. Azad Kashmir has no political authority. Kashmir, the other part, is taken over by India. I mean, who are you? Who are you? Who are you? You're nobody. We're no one. Our nationalism has been cursed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look at our nations. We can't even defend our own Muslims. We can't even feed our own people. And you're proud of where you're from? SubhanAllah, I'm Greek. I'm not even proud of where I'm from. And Greece had a bigger empire than you. We got a greater history than you. You're what? You started in 1950s? Bangladesh, 1971? And you think you're somebody. I'm sorry, this is bakwas. Sorry, this is crazy, this is rubbish. I get so angry when I say it's because it's a disease in the ummah. Nationalism is destructive. It's destructive. So remember where we're going, death. And death will break us. Nationalism is not going to help us. It's not going to take us anywhere. So respect your language, respect your cultural customs that are not against Islam. But don't make it now your creed, your aqidah. It is the yardstick, it's the lenses, the glasses you put on your face to see the world. And it's all judged by those nationalistic boundaries. We are one ummah, khalas. Whether you like it or not, we bleed in the same color, we smile in the same language, and we laugh in the same language. And we eat with the same hand. Yeah? Even the Prophet ﷺ, when he took over Mecca, I believe, he stamped his foot, he said, nationalism is under my foot. Think about this. A few years ago, Ikhwan, relatively 10, 50, 60 years ago, 70 years ago, some guy, a colonialist, who killed your forefathers, drank their blood almost, and burnt their books, went on a map, and he drew some lines on a map. And you define yourself by those lines. Think about that.
If we come back to Allah, come back to our senses, come back to the discipline, come back to the Quran, come back to the Sunnah, when we know this man well, the one that we say, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina wa Nabiyyina wa Habibina Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When we come back to that, Allah will give us success. Oh Muslims, as long as you keep on following behind your culture, your color, your nation, your flags, you are just like a beetle on a piece of dung. So a fly or a beetle flying around some dung is the Muslims flying around their culture, their flag. And that's why you can't have no unity. And you're not going to respect no leaders. And you can't get no justice. And you don't have no dignity. Allah took the ird from us. We don't have no brotherhood. And we don't have no power. Why? Because we lost ourselves. We lost our identity. Our identity is وَسَمَاءُكُمُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. We are Muslims. That's enough. Oh Muslims, come back to Islam. Come back to the Quran. Come back to the Sunnah. This is good enough for us. Form your communities, for your families, for your dignity, for your protection, and select a leader whom you will respect and follow. If you don't do that, you invite to yourself continuous embarrassment. You invite to yourself failure. You invite to yourself punishment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you invite for yourself humiliation from the kuffar.
يضم